Hello, I hope you're fine. Now we're going to start a new unit which deals with modal verbs. A modal is a type of auxiliary helping verb that is used to express ability or possibility or permission or obligation, among others. There are 7 basic rules which are essential to understand modals. We are going to see these rules. 1. A modal is a type of auxiliary, but not all the auxiliaries are modals. Modals represent a subgroup into the group of auxiliaries. For instance, all the people born in Andalusia are Spanish, but not all Spanish people are Andalusian. Therefore, modals respect the rules for auxiliaries. 2. Never use 2 auxiliaries together. So how would you say yo podré? I will can? No, it's not correct because we can never use 2 auxiliaries together. In this case, we have to turn to another option as I will be able to, yo seré capaz de, to do something. 3. Modals form the negation by themselves. As stated in the rule number 2, we can never use 2 auxiliaries together. Modals don't need the auxiliary don't or doesn't to put the verb in the negative form. Therefore, we don't say I don't can't. Modal verbs form the negation just by placing not afterwards. I cannot or I must not. I cannot can be contracted as I can't, or I must not, can be contracted as I mustn't. Right? 4. With an auxiliary, the main verb is always in infinitive form. Thus, we can never say he can is. We have to use the infinitive form so that we must say he can be. 5. Modals are never conjugated. We can never say he can, he can't, or he is canning. Remember, no s, no ed, no ing. We just say we can. He can. 6. Modals respect the así structure in questions. Do you remember what así means? Auxiliary subject and infinitive. Remember that we can use elements before and after the así structure. Okay? But we always use the así structure in questions, except when we use the verb to be or to have as auxiliaries. Are you playing or have you played? We cannot use the así structure in these questions. For all the other questions, we use the así structure including modals. Can I go to the toilet? Do you remember this sentence? I'm sure you do. 7. We never use to before or after a modal. In Spanish, we use the infinitive form tú deberías estudiar. This infinitive in English is used in the base form without to. You should study. We cannot say you should to study. Right? There is only an exception, ought to. Only with ought to can we use to after the modal. You ought to study, which also means tú deberías estudiar. We have seen the 7 essential rules of modal verbs. Remember, a modal is a type of auxiliary, but not all the auxiliaries are modals. Never use 2 auxiliaries together. Modals form the negation by themselves. With an auxiliary, the main verb is always in infinitive form. Modals are never conjugated. Modals respect the así structure in questions. And we never use to before or after a modal, except ought to. Okay, we are going to see the most common modal verbs. Can, normally it is translated as poder, and it indicates permission. Can I go to the toilet? Probability. It's 9 o'clock, they can be at home. Son las 9, ellos pueden estar en casa. Puede que estén en casa. Ability. I can speak Chinese. In this case, we usually translate can as saber. Yo sé hablar chino, o yo puedo hablar chino. I can speak Chinese because I've got the ability to speak Chinese. Yo puedo hablar chino porque tengo la habilidad de hablarlo. Must. It has got 2 different translations. Deber, when it indicates obligation, we must study English. Nosotros debemos estudiar inglés. or deber de, when it indicates probability. It must be 10 o'clock. Deben de ser las 10. Could, it indicates possibility. Could he be studying? ¿Podría él estar estudiando? Permission, you could borrow my coat if you need it. Tú puedes coger mi abrigo si lo necesitas. Or could I go to the toilet, please? For asking for permission, and it is more polite than can I go to the toilet. It's más cortés. Ability in the past, when I was 5 years old, I could speak Chinese. Cuando yo tenía 5 años, yo podía o sabía hablar chino. And suggestions, we could go to the cinema in the sense of let's go to the cinema. Podríamos ir al cine, right? May. We can also use may to indicate permission, both to ask or to give permission. You may borrow my hoodie if you need it. Tú puedes coger mi sudadera si la necesitas. Or may I have some water, please? ¿Puedo tomar un poco de agua, por favor? Possibility. I may study this afternoon. Puede que yo estudie esta tarde. Or a possibility in real situations. This medicine may produce dizziness. Esta medicina puede producir mareo. It's possible, but not always. Might, it is very similar to may. Sometimes they can be interchanged without a significant difference in meaning. Although might expresses a more remote possibility. Una posibilidad más remota. Look at these examples. It may rain. Puede llover, puede que llueva. Let's say there is a 70% chance of rain. And it might rain. Podría llover. It represents, let's say, a 40% chance of rain. Note that we can also use might for asking for permission, but it is not very common. Might I go to the toilet? It's not very common, actually. Thus, we can trace a line regarding probability. So, if we say, he goes out of school at 3 o'clock, it's 4 o'clock, he must be at home now. Él sale del instituto a las 3, son las 4, él debe de estar en casa ahora. Let's say that there is 100% certainty, okay? But if we say, he goes out of school at 3 o'clock, it's 2:30, he can't be at home now. Él sale del instituto a las 3, son las 2:30, él no puede estar en casa ahora. It's impossible, 0% certainty. But between must and can't, we can find different levels of probability. Thus, we can also say he goes out of school at 3 o'clock, it's 3:20, he may be at home now. Él sale del instituto a las 3, son las 3:20, él puede que esté en casa ahora. Okay, it's a 70% probability. Or he goes out of school at 3 o'clock, it's 3:05, he might be at home now. Él sale del instituto a las 3, son las 3:05, él podría estar en casa ahora, but it's a more remote possibility. These models have got the negative counterpart, of course. Can, can't, or may not. But mustn't deserves a mention apart. Mustn't is not the opposite of must. In Spanish, mustn't is translated as no debes, but as we have seen in the line of probability, the opposite of must is can't and not mustn't. Mustn't indicates prohibition, as in this example. You mustn't use your mobile in class. Tú no debes usar tu móvil en clase. You can, but you mustn't because it is prohibited. Tú puedes, pero no debes porque está prohibido. And finally, should and ought to, which mean debería, not deber. And they indicate suggestion or advice. You should study English, or you ought to study English, both meaning tú deberías estudiar. Ought to is less common than should, especially in negative or in questions. In these cases, we'd rather say, you shouldn't be so lazy. Tú no deberías ser tan vago. Or should we study English? ¿Deberíamos nosotros estudiar? Please note that in short answers, we always use modals. Can I go to the toilet? Yes, You can. Or must I wash the dishes today? No, you mustn't. You don't have to do it. For the use of modals, it is essential to identify what modals indicate. Let's see some examples. Example 1. You do more sport if you want to lose weight. Tú hacer más deporte si quieres perder peso. This sentence indicates a suggestion or advice, un consejo. Therefore, we use should. You should do more sport if you want to lose weight. Tú deberías hacer más deporte si quieres perder peso. Example 2. Drivers drive over the speed limit. Los conductores conducen por encima del límite de velocidad. So we have to fill in the gap with mustn't. Drivers mustn't drive over the speed limit. Los conductores no deben conducir por encima del límite de velocidad. Why? Because it is prohibited. It's against the rules. And in the last example, I speak French because I lived in France for 6 years. Yo hablar francés porque yo viví en Francia durante 6 años. Why? Because I have got the ability to speak it. And to indicate ability, we use can. I can speak French because I lived in France for 6 years. Puedo o sé hablar francés porque viví en Francia durante 6 años. Let's see now the case of have to. Although have to has got a meaning which indicates modality, in this case obligation, tener que, have to is not a modal verb. Why? Because have to doesn't respect, for instance, the rule number 2. Never use two auxiliaries together. Here we need don't for next to have to. Therefore, it doesn't respect rule number 2. Or you don't have to wash the dishes today, as modals form the negation by themselves and have to needs don't for the negation, it doesn't respect rule number 2. Or for instance, the rule number 6, modals respect the AC structure in questions. Here we also need do, therefore it doesn't respect rule number 6. Or number 5, he has to study, she had to call me. They are conjugated, and modals are never conjugated. No, rule number 5. Or for the rule number 7, we never use to before or after a modal, except O2. Have to is not O2. Therefore, we can't use rule number 7. And as a modal is a type of auxiliaries and have to is not a modal, it doesn't respect rule number 1. Okay, so we have seen the 7 essential rules for modal verbs, and it's very important to take into account these rules in order to use modal verbs properly. Remember, a modal is a type of auxiliary. Never use two auxiliaries together. Modals form the negation by themselves. With an auxiliary, the main verb is always in infinitive form. Modals are never conjugated. Modals respect the AC structure in questions, and we never use to before or after a modal. You can see this video as many times as you think, as you need. And if you have any doubt, don't hesitate to contact me on my email, or I will post more explanations on my blog, the English T-shirt 2019.blogspot.com. Cheer up and patience. Bye, see you soon. Nos vemos pronto.